Spring came to Savannah with a madness of budding bushes and flowers, birds and squirrels, and a restlessness of the soul. So sweet was a walk by the river, so intoxicating the air and its coolness, touched with warmth, that Sugar Papa found it difficult to focus on his work. His mind kept going back to the pretty woman at the t-shirt shop, and he didn't know why. He wanted to know her more, needed to know her better, and he didn't understand why. He took to praying in his room, at his Victorian bed, head bowed to the luxurious regal bedspread with Ketchup, the cat, rubbing against his head as he did. "Lord, please let me meet that pretty woman again," he prayed. But he was terrified of his feelings and the drive that kept him rethinking those few seconds that morning, down on the waterfront when he had first seen her. For 2 Saturdays he had returned to the spot and played and had not seen her. Perhaps she had been inside the store. How would he talk to her? How could he? Panic would squeeze his throat and chest as he held his breath just thinking about it. The few steps across the courtyard of River Street, across the cobblestone road to the sidewalks of the shops, may as well have been miles, for the courage it would take to cross that distance to speak to her. And what would he say? These musings filled Anthony's mind as he began to check his appearance in the mirror. His hair and beard was black and tinged with gray, and he was getting old. He was tall, but despised his large feet that had been slightly deformed by wearing shoes that were too small for his feet for far too long. Grandmama Queenie had been busy all the time tending to the tenants of the house and hadn't had much time or money for a growing boy's shoes. His squashed feet had caused his toes to veer inward and form large bunions, giving them a somewhat grotesque appearance. But why would the pretty lady ever see his feet? Thinking this, he started examining them and realized he had not cut his toenails in far too long, and so he cut them. When he was done, he filed them as well and examined his work. "You got some ugly feet, Sugar Papa," he murmured to himself, and having done what he could, refused to allow himself to think of it further. She would never see them. That Friday night, Anthony went to the CVS in the historic district and had purchased some cream of nature black hair dye for black men and some tweezers for grooming himself. He did not visit the old house he had grown up in as he usually did, or go to the waterfront to play, but instead took the bag to the bathroom in his room and carefully followed the instructions on the box of hair color to darken his beard and his hair. He then trimmed and shaped his beard into what he thought was a better look. All the gray was suddenly gone, and he felt lighter, brighter, and more hopeful. But hopeful for what? Ketchup, the cat, sensed his distraction and began vying for his attention by jumping up onto the bathroom vanity and plying him with rubs and meows. The next morning, Anthony couldn't eat. He was too nervous about seeing that woman down at the waterfront. He put on a shabby suit he had bought at the thrift store for Grandmama's funeral. It had been too big for him then, but he was an older man now, and he filled it out. Maybe too much. He wore a gaudy tie with a large cartoon on it, one of the 2 ties he owned. He had purchased it on leave in the Philippines. He liked it. He checked his newly groomed appearance in the mirror and donned his beret and headed out. It was earlier than usual because he was anxious to get to his spot across the street from the store where the pretty woman worked before any other street performers could. On his arrival, there was no one around but pigeons, and he felt awkward for having come so early. His heart almost spun when he saw that the door of the shop was open. His breath quickened, his heart pounded, and then he saw her. She was pulling out the big circular racks for her t-shirts. He paced left. He wanted to run. He paced right. This might be his chance. No. Run. No. Stay. Run. Stay. Stay. Somewhere in his brain, the small voice of the long ago Isadora rose. Go ask her if you can help her, Anthony. He started to walk right across the street toward her to ask her if he could help. No, she might not recognize him from weeks ago. He walked back to his spot and began to play shakily. But he didn't sing. He couldn't. He just wanted her to hear him and remember who he was. She did.
Hey everybody, this is Jeannie from Trippin' Tarpley's Productions. Just want to remind you, if you're enjoying this video, please hit like and please leave a comment and subscribe if you like this content. I have travel videos, history videos, mystery videos, and my original writings. So without further ado, let's get back to the program. Thanks.
She did. She came out, her long hair around her face, as she waved and continued working. Now, Anthony stopped playing, and his long, shaking legs began striding across the street to the sidewalk where she was working. He reached it. Good morning, ma'am. Anthony tipped his beret. Did you need help with that? Oh, the woman said as she flipped her long blanket of hair back, surprised. Anthony was stunned. He stood on the sidewalk, nervous but transfixed by the glow of her face and beautiful hair. He was sure she had a beautiful soul. She glowed. No, thank you. I've got it. She smiled, wondering if she should be worried about the harmonica man so close, so early in the morning, with few other people around. This your t-shirt shop? Anthony asked. I'm the manager here, the woman replied. My name's Sugar Papa, Anthony said, and suddenly, embarrassed of the nickname he had always enjoyed and not knowing why he had said it, corrected himself. Anthony, my name's Anthony. Hello, Anthony, or Sugar Papa, or Anthony, my name's Tracy. Nice to meet you, she said, and continued working. It's going to be a busy day. I got word that lots of tour groups are coming through, the woman said. Yes, ma'am, Tracy. He did not know what else to say. Well, my playing here don't bother you none, I hope. Oh, no, I love it. You're welcome to play your harmonica here anytime. She was so very nice and pretty. Anthony stood there, filled up with the moment of talking to the woman. Just she and him, and the world glowed around them, and he was close to overflowing. Her smile was kind. He tipped his hat again and said, Well, ma'am, you have yourself a good day. Yes, ma'am, a good day. I hope my playing here don't bother you none. He repeated himself and felt stupid. Thank you. And he nearly stumbled away, his long legs spindling back to the spot across from the store. He began to play then, barely knowing what he was playing, and after an hour, he realized he had forgotten to put his hat down on the ground and was embarrassed again. Why, he did not know. Quickly, he put the hat down. He had watched the woman go in and out of the shop until she finally closed the door, leaving the racks of different colored shirts on the street. Continuing to play for another hour or so, he was barely conscious of the people passing who stopped to smile and listen and put $1 in his hat. He could not stop thinking about the woman in the shop across the street. God had answered his prayer to meet that woman again. Surely it was an answered prayer. A miracle had happened. Anthony was filled up, brimming over, astounded. Suddenly, he had to go home and check his appearance in the mirror. He snatched up his beret and hurried home with long, deliberate strides of his long legs, not stopping to share his money with the others as he usually did. He usually played sometimes all day, but not this day. He had to get home. When he reached his building, he hurried inside and up the narrow wooden stairs to his room. Unlocking the door, Ketchup jumped down from the sill to greet him. Ignoring Ketchup, Anthony ran to the usually tidy bathroom, now strewn with the packaging of hair color and other items distractedly abandoned, and stood in front of the mirror. And he examined his face in the large mirror in the light of the Savannah sun. The sun fell on the sill and the black and white tiles of the bathroom floor and on Anthony. He examined his ugliness and his beauty. He was horrible. He was extraordinarily handsome. He was plain. She was plain. She was beautiful. Ketchup's meows for attention remained neglected by the distracted Anthony. His hand was shaking as he combed his facial hair with the tiny comb that had come in the hair color box. He went to the bed and collapsed there on his back, triumphant in his answered prayer, exhausted already by the thoughts he could not put together and did not understand, feeling filled up but hungry for more of these sensations that were altogether new to him. He was restless, exhausted, happy, and horrified all at the same time. A tidal wave of never before experienced feelings had risen up above him, and he lay on his bed as it drowned him. The next day was a Sunday, and the stores didn't open until noon in Savannah, and Anthony Sugar Papa was needed at the end to help with a breakfast buffet, dishes, and general chores. When he got off at 6 that evening, he walked down to the waterfront. The t-shirt shop was closed. He did not feel like playing his harmonica, but instead purchased a trolley ticket and boarded the green trolley that would circle the historic district in Savannah. His friend, a white man named Kevin, was the driver. Anthony took a seat kitty-cornered from Kevin. He felt like talking, confiding in someone, but was afraid to say anything. All he wanted to do was talk about the woman, but he did not want to share something so sacred with anybody. He didn't want anyone to soil his hope. Was that what it was? Hope? Hope for what? He did not know and didn't dare progress to thought. It was just hope. As Sugar Papa and Kevin rounded the streets of Savannah, making small talk, Suge noticed Kevin's long hair. It was blonde. Around and around Kevin drove, and since Suge didn't own a car or a truck, it was a nice change to be driven around. The wooden seats of the trolley were hard, but the fresh evening spring air blowing through the sides of the trolley with no windows was intoxicating. The manure from the carriage horses on the street could be smelled. The jasmine that covered the wall of an old building. Cooking smells, too, and the river combined in an exhilarative perfume that embraced the soul and the life. Around and around they drove, and Anthony thought of her. Anthony was happy. She would love him. She would certainly love him the way that he loved her. That was it. This is love. The way he felt would spill over and through her and infect her too. It was a great love. Theirs would be the most important love. The stuff all the books and movies were about. He knew. He just knew. He loved her and she would love him back. As he thought these things, euphoric in his confidence, now that his great love would be returned, he noticed it again. Kevin's hair. It was very blonde. Why did he notice it? Something was telling him to think, Anthony, think. It was the little voice again. Was it Isadora's voice he heard? The hair was blonde. And then suddenly he knew the woman would love Kevin, not him. Kevin, a white man with blonde hair. She would love him if she knew him. Maybe she knew him already. His hair looked so nice. They both worked down along the river street. Maybe she's already in love with him, with Kevin. His friendly feeling toward Kevin turned suddenly in his mind to something sickening. How cruel the feeling was. He was sure that the woman loved him and shared his feelings a moment ago. He had come to realize it. And now this. Sugar Papa's feeling of friendship toward Kevin, who he had been talking to so easily for an hour or so, flipped into something akin to rage. He yanked on the trolley cable that signaled the driver to stop. "Getting off, buddy?" Kevin asked, concerned. Sugar Papa said nothing and only stared down at Kevin. His friendly chatter now turned to stony silence. He looked hard at Kevin, and with a hatred that was unfamiliar to him, he got off without another word. He walked home wrestling with the jealousy, hurt and disappointing of realizing that the woman, Tracy, would love Kevin and not him. He knew it. He just knew it was true. Back at the inn, Sugar Papa reclined on his bed. The evening sounds and smells of Savannah were coming alive outside the gabled, half-open window. And Ketchup the kitten jumped up onto Sugar Papa's chest. Ketchup's trusting green eyes stared into Anthony's brown eyes as she purred and kneaded his chest. Anthony petted her coat and could almost see the woman's face there, her face, amongst the dark hair of Ketchup. "Yes, Ketchup," Anthony murmured. "She loves me. She loves me." And he drifted off to sleep without covering himself with a blanket. End of part 4.